The scent of pine and damp earth was a perfume I knew better than my own skin. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of the Jade Cloud Mountains, Linife was in my element. My basket was half full with ginseng and silverleaf, a good haul before the autumn rains came. That's when I heard it, a sharp, pained gasp followed by the unmistakable chilling sound of a serpent's recoil. I pushed through a thicket of thorn ferns and saw him. A man, dressed in clothes too fine for foraging, was slumped against a mossy rock, his face already ashen. On the ground beside his leg, a 5-pace viper slithered away, its diamond-patterned body a blur of death. I didn't hesitate. I dropped my basket, pulled the tourniquet cord from my hair, and tied it tightly above the swelling puncture marks on his calf. "Don't move," I commanded, my voice steadier than I felt. He was older, with a stern, authoritative face now contorted in agony. I crushed the special antidote herbs my grandmother had taught me to always carry, a blend of violet heartroot and ghost's bane, mixed them with water from my canteen and pressed the poultice directly onto the wound. Then I forced the rest of the mixture between his lips. He was unconscious for hours. I stayed, applying fresh poultices and monitoring his shallow breathing. When his eyes finally fluttered open, the setting sun was casting long shadows through the trees. His gaze was sharp, intelligent, taking me in, my simple village clothes, my calloused hands, the determined set of my jaw. "You," he rasped. "You saved me." "The venom was strong," I said simply. "You need to rest." He recovered with a speed that surprised me, a testament to a constitution hardened by a life I could only guess at. Before he left, he grasped my hand. His grip was firm, commanding. "I am in your debt. Name your reward. Anything within my power is yours." I thought of the only thing that truly mattered to me then. My heart belonged to Jiang Wei, a young man with ambitions as vast as the sky. He had just graduated from teacher's college and, driven by a fierce patriotism, had immediately enlisted in the National Guard. His future was all I could see. "My fiancé," I said, my voice soft but clear. "Jiang Wei. He's a good man, newly enlisted. I ask for a bright future for him. That is all I want." The man studied me, a strange, unreadable emotion in his eyes. He nodded once, a sharp, decisive motion. "It will be done. Your Jiang Wei will have every opportunity to rise. You have my word." He left without giving me his name, a solitary figure disappearing into the twilight. I felt a flutter of hope, a belief that I had secured happiness for the man I loved. Weeks turned into months. A special admission letter arrived for me from the prestigious Beijing University of Traditional Medicine. My hands trembled as I held it. My dream, to formalize the knowledge passed down through generations of my family, was within grasp. I had just begun to pack when Jiang Wei's mother, Auntie May, fell desperately, mysteriously ill. Jiang Wei rushed home on leave, his uniform crisp, his eyes full of a fear that tore at my heart. He found me, the letter on my table. "Ife, please," he begged, clutching my hands. "The doctors don't know what's wrong with her. We have no money for a specialist. You're the only one who can help. You can't leave us now. I have no one else to rely on." The look in his eyes, the raw need, undid me. Love made me foolish. I wrote to the university, deferring my admission for a year, and poured all my knowledge into healing Auntie May. It took months of relentless care, of foraging for ever rarer herbs, of preparing tonics and broths. Slowly, color returned to her cheeks. By the time she was fully recovered, the deadline for my admission had long passed. I tucked the letter away, a dull ache of sacrifice in my chest, soothed only by Jiang Wei's promises of our future together. Then his promotion came. He was made a lieutenant, his star rising just as the mysterious man had promised. Elated, I waited for his call, for his visit, for our long-awaited wedding plans. He arrived at my door on a crisp autumn day, looking every inch the handsome officer. But his eyes, once so warm, were cold. "Lin Yifei," he said, his voice devoid of the tenderness I knew. "We need to talk. This engagement, it's over." The world tilted. "What? Jiang Wei, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm about to be a captain. My future is in the city at headquarters. You," he gestured dismissively at my small house at me. "You're a village herbalist. You have no education, no connections. You would be an embarrassment. You're not qualified to be an officer's wife." The words were like physical blows. I refused, of course. I screamed, I cried, I called him ungrateful. Blind with hurt and betrayal, I took the little money I had and boarded a bus to his provincial base, demanding an explanation. He was waiting for me. He seemed almost bored by my tears. He shoved an envelope of cash into my hands. Here. For the wedding that's not happening. Consider it compensation. Now go home and stop making a scene. I threw the money back at him. I don't want your money. I want you to remember who you are. I want you to remember who got you here. The next thing I knew, military police were grabbing me. Jiang Wei looked on with cold indifference as they accused me of extortion, of demanding money from an officer. They claimed they found a large sum of cash hidden in my bag. Money I never possessed. His word against mine. A decorated officer against a hysterical village girl. I was sentenced to 3 years in prison. As they led me away in shackles, I saw Jiang Wei turn and walk away without a backward glance. My world, built on love and sacrifice, had been utterly demolished. 3 years in a women's prison is a lifetime carved out in shame and brutality. I was inmate number 407, no longer Lin Fei the herbalist, just a number. The days were a monotonous cycle of hard labor, bland food, and the constant low hum of fear. The nights were worse, filled with the sounds of weeping and the terrifying scrape of keys in the lock. I held on to my innocence like a talisman, but it grew heavier each day. My spirit, once as resilient as the mountain oaks, began to splinter. I learned to keep my head down, my eyes empty, my heart barricaded behind a wall of ice. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of getting out and clearing my name. I would make Jiang Wei admit what he did. When the gates finally clanged shut behind me, I was a ghost of my former self. The village I returned to was the same, but I was unrecognizable. My parents were long gone and my small cottage was dusty and cold. The warmth and respect I had once known were replaced by wary glances and slammed doors. People I had known since childhood crossed the street to avoid me. Whispers followed me like a plague. There's the extortionist. Jailed for trying to blackmail that nice officer Jiang. Threw away everything he gave her. Ungrateful wretch. I was toxic. No one would hire the ex-convict. The clinic where I'd once volunteered my skills turned me away. Desperation became my new constant companion. I took the only work I could find. Scrubbing floors in a factory canteen, hauling bricks on a construction site, back-breaking labor that paid a pittance and left me exhausted and hollow. I lived on the frayed edge of survival, each day a battle for mere existence. Meanwhile, snippets of Jiang Wei's glorious life reached me like taunts. He wasn't just a captain anymore. He was a rising star, praised in the regional newspaper. And he was married. He married Su Jia, the daughter of a well-connected county official. Su Jia, who had been an educated youth, sent to our village years ago. She was lazy and entitled, more interested in primping than labor, but she had a city pedigree Jiang Wei clearly coveted. I heard he moved his parents to the city to live with them in a modern apartment. They were living the comfortable life I had once dreamed of sharing with him, a life paid for with my freedom and my future. The injustice was a poison in my veins. I couldn't accept it. I began to fight back. I wrote letters to every official I could think of, detailing the frame-up. I traveled to the county seat, then to the provincial capital, clutching my fading sheaf of complaints. I was always met with closed doors, bored officials, or outright hostility. The case is closed, they'd say. Stop making trouble. Once, a stern-faced man in a security uniform warned me, "Officer Jiang is a respected man. You're just a criminal with a grudge. Keep this up and you'll find yourself back inside." I was being silenced, my efforts systematically crushed by the very system Jiang Wei was now a part of. I was a tiny, insignificant bug trying to topple a mountain. The breakthrough came from a discarded newspaper lining a market stall. My eyes caught a familiar face on the front page. It was him. The man I had saved in the mountains. He was standing in a line of senior officials, and the caption identified him. General Zhao, Deputy Commander of the Military Region. A spark of hope, the first in years, flared in my chest. He was powerful, far more powerful than Jiang Wei. And he owed me a debt. He was my last chance. With the last of my meager savings, I bought a train ticket north, to the city where General Zhao was headquartered. The journey was long and terrifying. I looked like what I was, a poor, desperate rural woman, and I felt every suspicious glance. But the hope burned brightly. He would remember me. He would help me. I never got to see him. My inquiries at the military district gate must have triggered an alarm. As I left the station, disheartened but determined to try again the next day, two men fell into step beside me on a deserted street. "Linny Fay?" one asked, his voice low. Before I could answer, a strong hand clamped over my mouth, and I was dragged into a narrow alley. The last thing I saw was Jiang Wei's cold, handsome face, and beside him Sujia's smug, smiling one. "You should have let it go," Jiang Wei muttered. They pushed me into the murky, cold waters of the city canal. I fought, but the current was strong and their hands held me under. The world faded into swirling, dark green silence. My last thought was a searing, final vow of vengeance. Then nothing. I gasped, my eyes flying open. Sunlight. The smell of wood smoke and blooming chrysanthemums. I was standing in my own front yard. And standing before me, young and infuriatingly arrogant, was Jiang Wei. "Linny Fay," he said coldly, his voice exactly as it had been on that fateful day. "Let's call off the engagement. I'm about to be promoted. You're just a rural girl with no education, no background. You're not qualified to be my wife." I stared, my mind reeling, drowning not in water but in a flood of impossible memories. The cold canal water, his face, and now this. Him so young. Me back in my old clothes, my hands smooth, not yet ruined by prison labor. I had died. And I had been sent back. Back to the moment it all began. This time I would not be a victim. This time I would write our story in a different ink. The air left my lungs in a silent rush. The sun was too bright, the scent of chrysanthemums too sweet, the arrogance on Jiang Wei's face too sharp, too real. This wasn't a dream or a dying hallucination. The weight of my past life, the betrayal, the prison bars, the cold water filling my lungs, was a leaden truth in my soul, but my body was light, unburdened. I was back. Truly back. Jiang Wei misread my stunned silence for shock and despair. A flicker of impatience crossed his features. "Linny Fay, why aren't you saying anything? Are you still hoping I'll change my mind? I'm telling you now. Don't even think about clinging to me. If you do, don't blame me for being ruthless." Ruthless. The word ignited a fire in me. I had experienced the full, chilling depth of his ruthlessness. The 3 years of my life stolen, the ridicule, the humiliation, the desperate clawing for survival, it all surged through my veins not as a memory but as a living, breathing fuel. Fueled by a fury that spanned 2 lifetimes, my body moved before my mind could catch up. My right arm swung, my palm connecting with his cheek in a crack that echoed through the quiet yard. It was a solid, satisfying impact that jarred my wrist and sent a jolt of pure, undiluted power up my arm. Caught completely off guard, Jiang Wei's head snapped to the side. He stumbled back a step, his hand flying to his reddening cheek. His eyes, wide with utter disbelief, slowly narrowed into slits of pure rage. No one had ever dared to strike him. Least of all me, the docile village girl who had loved him so blindly. "You," he spat, the word venomous. "You dared to hit me, Linny Fay? You're asking for trouble. Just wait and see what happens to you." The threat, which would have once filled me with dread, now sounded pathetic. I knew exactly what he was capable of, and forewarned was forearmed. I met his furious glare with a coldness that I saw unsettle him. "Fine," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, devoid of the tears he expected. "Let's break off the engagement." A flicker of triumphant surprise replaced his anger. He thought I'd capitulated. He was wrong. "But first," I continued, each word dropping like a stone, "you will pay me back. Every single jiao I spent on your tuition, your books, your living expenses through middle school, high school, and teacher's college. You will account for every resource I poured into you. And you will return what is mine. My admission letter to Beijing University of Traditional Medicine." The moment the words left my mouth, the color drained from Jiang Wei's face. The arrogance vanished, replaced by a panicked, guilty pallor. The money was one thing, a significant, embarrassing debt he'd hoped would remain buried. But the admission letter, that was a secret he thought was safely hidden. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, recovering poorly. "What admission letter?" "Don't play stupid with me, Jiang Wei," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "The special recommendation letter. The one that arrived after I saved that man in the mountains. The opportunity you and your mother begged me to defer. I want it back. Now." He was scrambling, his mind racing for a way to regain control. This is nonsense. You're making scenes because you're hurt. Well, I'll go home and see about the money. Just calm down. He tried to turn away to flee the confrontation, but I didn't give him the chance. I tapped into a skill I'd never used in my previous life: performance. I let my voice rise into a wail, tears, real tears of past anguish, springing to my eyes. You can't just leave. I cried, grabbing his arm. After all I've done for you, for your family, you use me and throw me away like garbage. My cries, sharp and piercing, did exactly what I intended. Doors creaked open. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, began to gather around the edge of my yard, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Ife? What's going on?" called Old Man Chen from next door. Tearfully I turned to the growing crowd, laying my soul bare. I told them everything. How Jiang Wei was breaking our engagement now that he was promoted. I described, in vivid, heartbreaking detail, how I had scaled the treacherous Jade Cloud Mountains since I was 10 years old, gathering herbs, selling them, and funneling every spare coin into his education. His tuition, his books, his nice clothes, the food he ate in the city, it all came from me. I sobbed, pointing an accusatory finger at him. Every cent came from my sweat and my risk. And now he has the glory and the rank. He turns his back and says I'm not qualified. Jiang Wei, I finally see you for the snake you are. You were just using me. The villagers' murmurs turned from curiosity to disgust. I saw their faces harden as they looked at Jiang Wei. "This is outrageous," a woman shouted. "He's no better than Qin Shimi, ditching his faithful wife. After all Ife did for the Jiang family, this is how he repays her. It's inhuman. If he wants to break it off, he should at least pay her back every last penny." With the court of public opinion turning decisively against him, Jiang Wei's face flushed a deep, shameful red. "Who says I won't pay her back?" he muttered defensively, his voice barely audible over the crowd's jeers. "I'll go home right now and gather the money." Just as he tried to slink away, a familiar, shrill voice cut through the noise. "What is going on here? Why is everyone bullying Jiang Wei?" Su Jia pushed her way through the crowd. She looked every bit the privileged city girl, her clothes just a little nicer than anyone else's. Seeing the villagers' contemptuous looks, she puffed out her chest and stepped protectively in front of Jiang Wei, as if shielding a hero. "What are you all doing?" she declared. "Jiang Wei is a soldier, a hero who protects all of us. You can't bully him like this." I let out a scornful laugh and raised my voice. "No one is bullying your so-called hero. He owes me a debt and it's only right that he pays it back. That's called basic decency, something you both seem to lack." Su Jia's eyes narrowed into a hateful sneer. "Linifei, are you seriously dredging up old debts? No one forced you to pay for Jiang Wei's education. You did that willingly. And besides, Jiang Wei is a soldier now. He risks his life for the people. Isn't it normal for someone like you to sacrifice a little for him?" Her audacity was breathtaking. "You talk like it's no big deal. So why don't you make the sacrifice? Since you love defending him so much, why don't you repay what I gave him? How about that?" Su Jia glared daggers at me. She loved playing the benevolent savior. "Fine. I will. It's just money. I'll have my uncle wire it to me right away." Her family was from the city, and her uncle was reportedly an influential official in the county. That, of course, was the real reason Jiang Wei had dumped me. He wanted to climb higher on her family's connections. Her offer left Jiang Wei deeply touched. He looked at her with a gratitude he had never shown me. "Thank you, Su Jia. I really mean it." She smiled a sickly sweet smile. "Don't mention it. After all, civilians and soldiers are like family, aren't we? Unlike some people who calculate every step just to keep you tied down with guilt." Some of the villagers, those who didn't know the full story or were impressed by her show of wealth, murmured praises for her generosity and sense of justice. They exchanged a look of nauseating sentimentality. I watched them, my heart a block of ice. "There's one more thing," I said, my voice slicing through their moment. "Jiang Wei, I want my college admission letter back. Now." At the mention of the letter, Su Jia's smug expression froze solid. If I took it back, her ticket out of this village, her plan to impersonate me and attend university in my name, would go up in smoke. The air grew thick and tense. Su Jia's composure shattered. "You can't have it," she snapped, her voice losing its false sweetness. "Why not? I demanded, turning my cold gaze on her. What does my admission letter have to do with you? I said no, she shouted, her face contorting. You're just a nobody from some rural village. What makes you think you can survive at a top university? That's Beijing we're talking about. You wouldn't even be able to find your way out of the train station. You'd just embarrass yourself in this entire village. Whether I can or not isn't your business, I retorted, my voice dangerously calm. I want the money and I want my admission letter. Lin Fei, you ungrateful wretch, she shrieked, losing all control. How dare you do this to Jiang Wei? Don't forget the Jiang family raised you. If it weren't for them, you would have starved to death long ago. They were kind enough not to ask for all the money they spent raising you. That alone should be enough. And now you want to take everything from him? You've got some nerve. Her words, designed to twist the narrative, had an effect. I saw confusion bloom on some of the villagers' faces. The story was shifting. Yeah. I remember Yifei was taken in by the Jiangs when she was just 6, one man muttered. They must have spent quite a bit raising her over the years, another chimed in. She's just that kind of ungrateful child who drains the people who raise her, a woman added, shaking her head. After more than a decade of care, that should more than make up for what she spent on his education. She's just asking for all that money because she doesn't want the engagement to end. The tide of public opinion so fickle began to turn. Jiang Wei was a college graduate and a soldier. He was bound to get promoted. I was just the scorned woman causing a scene. I could see the smug satisfaction returning to Su Jia's eyes. I let them talk. I let them believe they had won. Then I let out a cold, sharp laugh that silenced them all. Who said I was raised by the Jiang family? My voice cut through the murmurs like a knife. The crowd fell silent. All eyes were on me. My parents, I said slowly and clearly, died saving Jiang Wei's parents in the Great Landslide 15 years ago. The government even awarded them medals for bravery and recognized them as martyrs. The only reason the Jiang family took me in was out of guilt and a sense of obligation. I let that sink in for a moment. I saw the dawning realization on many faces as they recalled the tragic event. And for your information, I continued, my voice rising with each word, I am the daughter of fallen heroes. I've been receiving a survivor's pension from the government since I was little. All these years I lived under their roof, but I never spent a single fun of their money. My parents' pension more than covered my needs. I pointed an accusing finger at Jiang Wei. Not to mention I started collecting and selling medicinal herbs in the mountains at a young age to help out their household. I worked like a mule for the Jiang family and I never saw a penny of that pension. They kept every bit of it for themselves. I turned to the crowd, my gaze sweeping over them. Didn't any of you notice? Didn't you wonder how the whole Jiang family always had new clothes and meat on the table year-round, even during lean seasons? That was all paid for with my parents' pension. With my money. A stunned silence followed my outburst. Then the whispers began again, this time with a new, angry tone. Now that she mentions it, if it hadn't been for her parents saving the Jiangs, she wouldn't have been orphaned. And even if she did get a pension, she still worked her butt off for that family. Just the fact that her parents saved them, shouldn't the Jiangs have treated her like a daughter out of gratitude? I saw the truth dawning on their faces, the shame and anger directed at Jiang Wei. I raised my voice one final time. Jiang Wei, you are a heartless, backstabbing bastard. You will pay me back my money and you will return my college admission letter. I want both. Nothing less. Jiang Wei stood pale and silent, utterly defeated and ashamed. He knew the game was up. But Su Jia couldn't bear it. You can't give it to her, she hissed at him. I looked at her, this girl who thought she could steal my life. Su Jia, what does this have to do with you? This is between Jiang Wei and me. Don't you feel ridiculous throwing yourself into something that's none of your business? I'm just standing up for what's right, she insisted, though her voice lacked its earlier conviction. Oh really? I mocked. Then why is it that out of all the people here you're the only one jumping in to defend him? None of the other educated youths are saying a word. Just you. I paused, letting the implication hang in the air. You and Jiang Wei sure seem close. Don't tell me he's trying to dump me because he's got his eye on some city girl like you. The villagers' gazes snapped back and forth between Jiang Wei and Su Jia, their eyes filled with sudden understanding and suspicion. Just as the crowd was about to put the pieces together, a new commotion erupted. Jiang Wei's mother, Auntie Zhu, came storming into the yard. Her face was a mask of performative fury. She marched straight to Jiang Wei, grabbed him by the ear and yelled, "You little bastard! What the hell have you been doing behind my back? How could you be so ungrateful? I ought to beat some sense into you." She gave him a few light theatrical smacks, then turned to me, her face instantly morphing into concern. "Ife, sweetie," she simpered, reaching for my hand. "I've always treated you like my own daughter. Whatever this little brat has done, I'll make sure you get the justice you deserve." I recoiled from her touch as if burned. In my past life, this was the woman who had begged me to stay and nurse her, who had stood by silently as her son destroyed me, and who had later kicked me herself when I was down. I shoved her hand away, my disgust palpable. "I don't want your fake sympathy," I spat. "I just want the money I am owed and my admission letter. I'm not leaving without both. If you don't give me what I'm owed, I'll report this to the county authorities. I'll tell them everything." Auntie Zhu's smile was strained, awkward. Don't worry, she said placatingly. "We'll figure out a way to gather the money. Just give us some time. As for the admission letter," she reached into the folds of her jacket. "I've brought it with me. I'll give it to you right now." As she spoke, she produced a registered envelope with Beijing University of Traditional Medicine printed on it. The moment she did, Jiang Wei and Su Jiao lunged forward in a panic. "Mom, don't!" Jiang Wei cried out, trying to snatch it back. "What about me?" Su Jiao wailed, her voice desperate. A chaotic struggle ensued. I fought them off with a ferocity they never expected, scratching, shoving, my sole focus on the envelope Auntie Zhu was holding. In the midst of the scuffle, someone shoved Auntie Zhu. She let out a dramatic cry and fell to the ground, clutching her leg. "Oh, my leg. My leg. I think it's broken." The commotion forced Jiang Wei to break away and rush to his mother's side. Seizing the opportunity, I finally wrenched the envelope from Auntie Zhu's loosened grip and quickly tucked it inside my blouse, next to my heart. Jiang Wei, unable to get the letter, helped his wailing mother to her feet. He turned to me, his eyes blazing with pure hatred. "Are you satisfied now?" he snarled. "Let me tell you something, Lin Yifei. If anything happens to my mom, I won't go easy on you." He glared at me, his voice dripping with threat. "I'm about to get promoted. When I do, you'll regret everything." I met his gaze without flinching. I wouldn't regret a thing. The only thing I regretted was ever letting them use me. I had the letter. I had won this round. But as I walked away, the weight of the envelope against my skin felt wrong. The paper seemed too flimsy, the print not quite sharp enough. A deep, chilling suspicion began to uncoil in my gut. Their performance, their desperation, it had been too convenient. I hurried home, my heart pounding not with victory, but with a new kind of fear. I locked my door, my hands trembling as I pulled the envelope from my shirt. I stared at it, this key to my future, this object of all my hopes in their scheming. Slowly I pulled out the letter inside. My eyes scanned the official header, the printed words. And then I saw it. The embossed seal at the top was blurry, smudged. A cheap imitation. The admission letter was a fake. It was all a setup. Their struggle, Auntie Zhu's injury. It was all a performance to make me accept this forgery without looking too closely. Fury, hot and absolute, surged through me. Even with a second chance, they had still managed to deceive me. My initial rage was a blinding white heat. I wanted to storm over there and confront them, to tear their lies apart in front of everyone. But I stopped myself. I had done that last time and it had only played into their hands. I needed to be smarter. I needed proof. Taking a deep, steadying breath, I extinguished the lantern and slipped out into the pitch-black village night. I would not confront them. I would listen. The night air was cool against my feverish skin. I moved through the sleeping village like a ghost, my footsteps silent on the packed earth. The fury that had threatened to consume me moments before was now a cold, hard stone in my stomach, sharpening my senses. Recklessness had doomed me in my past life. This time I would wield patience as my weapon. I didn't head for the Jiang house. Instead, I circled around towards the eastern fields, towards the large haystacks that stood like silent sentinels against the starry sky. It was a place for secret meetings and stolen moments. If they were celebrating their deception or plotting their next move, that's where they would be. I was right. Before I saw them, I heard them. A familiar, giddy giggle sliced through the quiet night. Sujia's voice, dripping with delight. That was hilarious. You and your mom really nailed that performance. Lin Fei had no idea she was holding a fake admission letter. I froze, melting into the shadow of a nearby storage shed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Jiang Wei's chuckle was low and smug. She thought she was being so clever. She had no idea I'd already forged a fake letter just for her. My nails dug into my palms. The confirmation was a physical pain. The real one, Sujia said, her voice eager. Where is it? You have it safe. Of course. I've got it hidden under the loose floorboard beneath my cabinet back at home. When we get married, I'll hand it over to you and you can go to college in her place. I heard the sound of a kiss. But what if when school starts, Lin Fei shows up with that fake letter? Sujia asked, a note of anxiety creeping into her voice. She's such a loudmouth. What if she causes a scene once she finds out? She's just a shrew, Jiang Wei replied, his tone dismissive, so arrogantly sure of his own superiority. So what if she finds out? What can she even do? She'll definitely cause a huge scene when she finds out, Sujia insisted. Once that happens, the truth about me taking her place will come out. Don't worry, Jiang Wei said smoothly, and I could almost see him patting her hand. I won't give her a chance to show up at the university. I'll figure out a way to set her house on fire. Once the fake admission letter is reduced to ashes, what will she have left to prove anything? It'll be her word against mine, and everyone will think she's just a bitter, crazy woman making up stories. The coldness of his plans stole the air from my lungs. Arson. Murder. He was discussing it as casually as one might discuss the weather. You're so smart, Jiang Wei, Sujia giggled, full of sickening admiration. I love you to death. Their voices, their plans, their affection. It was a nauseating symphony of betrayal. I clenched my fists so tightly I felt my short nails break the skin of my palms. The pain was a grounding anchor. Thank the heavens I hadn't stormed into their house. If I had, I would have played right into their hands. They were right. With the fake letter in my possession, any future claims from me would look like the ravings of a lunatic. I listened as their conversation turned to murmurs and then to other, more disgusting sounds. They were utterly consumed, unaware of anything but themselves. My eyes, adjusted to the dark, spotted a dim pile of fabric discarded a few feet away from the haystack. Their clothes. A plan, dark and perfect, began to form in my mind. Since they were so shameless, I would help them display it for the whole world to see. I crept forward, as silent as the mountain mist. The rustling from the haystack covered any small sound I made. I reached out, my fingers closing around the coarse cotton of Jiang Wei's uniform trousers and the softer fabric of Sujia's blouse. I gathered them up, along with their underthings, and slipped away as silently as I had come. Instead of heading home, I made for the village stream. Without a second thought, I tossed the entire bundle into the slow-moving current. I watched as the clothes, their last shred of dignity, swirled in the water for a moment before being pulled away into the darkness downstream. Next, I turned and ran not home but toward the Jiang house. Now that I knew exactly where my property was, I would reclaim it. I knew that house intimately. I had mixed the mud for its bricks, had carried water for its mortar. I found the loose board beneath the cabinet in Jiang Wei's room with ease. My fingers pried it up and there it was. The real admission letter. The paper was thick and official, the embossed seal sharp and clear under my trembling fingertips. I clutched it to my chest, a sob of relief and triumph catching in my throat. But my work was not done. They had promised me a fire. I would give them one. The firewood pile outside their home was immense. I had spent years of my life building it, bundle by heavy bundle, hauling it down from the mountain. Now it would serve a new purpose. I struck a match. The tiny flame danced in the darkness before catching on the dry tinder. I fed it carefully, letting it grow from a flicker to a hungry tongue of fire, and then I stepped back. The dry wood caught with a satisfying whoosh. Flames roared to life, climbing higher and higher, casting a hellish, dancing red glow across the compound and lighting up the dark village night. It didn't take long for the shouts to begin. Fire! Fire at the Jiang house. Doors slammed open. Villagers, roused from sleep, came rushing out with buckets of water, their faces etched with panic and confusion. The Jiang family screamed and cried, scrambling to save their belongings, dragging quilts and chairs out into the yard. but the firewood I had so diligently provided for them now formed a perfect pyre. The flames, fed by a year's worth of my labor, surged with an unstoppable fury. There was no hope of putting it out. All they could do was stand there helplessly and watch their home burn to the ground. I stood among the crowd, my face a mask of concerned shock, watching silently as the flames devoured the physical evidence of my years of servitude. I felt no pity, only a cold, grim satisfaction. Then through the chaos, a voice rose above the crackle of flames. "Wait, where's Jiang Wei?" Old Man Chen asked, looking around. "I see Auntie Zhu and Uncle Jiang but not their son. Why isn't he here helping?" The question spread through the crowd like its own kind of fire. "Yeah, how can he be missing when his whole house is burning down? This isn't right." Just as the murmuring grew, a young, clear voice piped up. It was little Go, the son of the village carpenter. "I just saw Jiang Wei and that city girl Su Jiao hiding in the haystack by the east field," he announced loudly. "They didn't have any clothes on." Auntie Zhu's face, already streaked with soot and tears, twisted in panic. "Don't make things up, you little brat," she screeched. But little Go, emboldened by the attention, stood his ground. "I'm not lying. They're over in that haystack at the east end, naked as the day they were born." Auntie Zhu made a move to shove him, but his father stepped forward, his face dark. "What are you doing pushing my son? Your kid's the one off rolling around in the hay while his house burns down. You clearly didn't raise him right. Oh, like your son's so well raised, spying on people." Auntie Zhu shot back, but her voice was losing its power. "If you don't believe him," little Go's mother shouted, her voice rising above the din, "let's all go to the haystack and see for ourselves." The crowd, buzzing with a prurient curiosity that now outweighed their concern for the fire, needed no further encouragement. A river of people, still holding their buckets and flashlights, turned and marched toward the east field. I followed, my heart beating a steady, cold rhythm. And there, in the intersecting beams of a dozen flashlights, they were found. Jiang Wei and Su Jia, completely naked, scrambling to cover themselves with handfuls of straw, their faces masks of utter horror and shame. The villagers surrounded them, a rapt audience to the most spectacular circus show our village had ever seen. It wasn't until Auntie Zhu arrived, shrieking and throwing a blanket at them, that the two were able to cover themselves and flee from the gawking eyes. Their reputations were in ashes just like their home. The scandal was absolute. In a small village where gossip was the primary currency, Jiang Wei and Su Jia had bankrupted themselves in a single night. To quiet the vicious talk and salvage the last shreds of their honor, they had no choice but to get married. It was a rushed, miserable affair at the County Civil Affairs Bureau, devoid of celebration or joy. They moved into a temporary room attached to the village office, their once bright futures now shrouded in disgrace. A week later they held a small, obligatory wedding banquet in the plaza in front of the building. The air was thick with awkwardness, not celebration. I went, of course. I would not let them think I was hiding. When Jiang Wei and Su Jia made their rounds to toast the guests, Su Jia stopped in front of me, her lips curled into a sneer that couldn't hide the humiliation in her eyes. "I'm honestly impressed you had the nerve to show up and eat," she hissed, low enough so only I could hear. "You must be miserable inside, huh?" I took a slow sip of tea and smiled. Miserable? Compared to being caught naked in a haystack and becoming the biggest joke in the village, I'm doing great. I'm eating well, sleeping well. I've even gained 2 pounds. Her face twisted with fury. She gritted her teeth. "You can win a war of words, but it doesn't matter. Soon you'll understand exactly what's coming your way, Lini Fei. You'll be begging me on your knees to spare you." They moved on, clinging to their pathetic threats. I continued to eat, my appetite undiminished. As the banquet was winding down, Auntie Zhu approached me. She looked aged, her eyes hollow. In her hands she held a stuffed cloth pouch. "Ifei," she said, her voice a practiced imitation of remorse. Here's the money you asked for." She pressed the heavy pouch into my hands. "Enemies should be settled, not deepened. Now that we've given you this, I hope you'll stop targeting our family. Please, I'm begging you." She sounded sincere. But I knew her. I knew them. I didn't respond. Instead, I untied the pouch right there in front of everyone and poured the contents onto the table. Neat bundled stacks of cash. 100,000 yuan. A collective gasp went up from the nearby villagers. It was an unimaginable sum. Oh well. Jiang Wei was bold. And Sujia's so-called uncle was indeed rich. They had actually managed to produce it. I made a show of counting it, my voice clear and loud. 100,000. It's all here. I looked directly at Auntie Zhu, whose face was a tight mask. The debt is settled. I gathered the money, tied the pouch securely, and walked away without another word. I could feel their eyes burning into my back. Auntie Zhu's, Jiang Wei's, Sujia's. It wasn't the look of defeat. It was the look of predators who had just laid a very clever trap. In my past life, Jiang Wei had me imprisoned for allegedly extorting 30,000. That had earned me 3 years. 100,000 was a fortune. A sum that would warrant a sentence of life imprisonment, especially if they could prove I'd threatened them for it. Their plan was devious and utterly shameless. They weren't giving me money, they were giving me a life sentence, and they were delivering the evidence directly into my hands. I went home and acted normally. I ate a simple dinner, washed my bowl, and prepared for bed. But I did not sleep. I waited in the dark, the heavy pouch of money on my table like a venomous serpent. Just after 8 p.m. I heard it. The sound of a car engine, a rarity in our village, pulling up outside my door. Heavy footsteps approached. A firm, authoritative knock rotated the wood. "Linifei, open up. We're the police. We're here to question you about a case." I took a deep, steadying breath and opened the door. 3 men in uniform stood there. The one in front had a face I would never forget from my past life. Captain He. The same man who had arrested me before, who had ignored my pleas, who had ensured my conviction. He flashed a badge, his expression stern and bored. "Linifei, we are from the County Public Security Bureau. We are investigating a case of extortion reported by the Jiang family. We have witnesses who saw you accept 100,000 yuan from them today under threats of violence. We are here to seize the evidence and take you in for questioning." His words were a rehearsed script. "With the accusation and evidence lining up, your crime is confirmed," he stated flatly. "Come with us." "I'm not going with you," I said, my voice even. "I haven't committed any crime. I didn't extort anyone. You have no right to arrest me." Captain He's lips curled into a sneer. "The evidence is overwhelming and you still dare to deny it? You think the law is a joke." He took a step forward, his presence intimidating. I stared directly at him, my gaze unwavering. "Captain He," I said, my voice cold and clear. "I have grievances. I demand the right to appeal." He scoffed. "A criminal trying to appeal? What's there to appeal? You extorted money. That's it." He barked at the officers behind him. "Don't waste time. Cuff her and take her in. If she resists, use force." The 2 junior officers moved toward me, steel handcuffs glinting in the dim light. I recognized this man. He wasn't just any officer. In my previous life after my release I learned who he truly was. He was the son of Wu Zhendong, the powerful county official Su Jia always bragged about, her uncle. His position as captain wasn't earned, it was stolen through corruption and connections. He knew I was innocent. He knew I'd been framed by his cousin and her new husband. But he didn't care. He had no conscience. I fought back, pushing the officers away as they tried to grab my arms. "I'd like to see you try," I shouted, raising my voice so the neighbors who were surely listening could hear. "One more time, listen carefully. That money isn't extortion money. It's dirty money. It's from county official Wu Zhendong's corruption and bribery. I'm making a formal report. Wu Zhendong is corrupt and has been accepting bribes. And I also accuse Captain He of abusing his authority to protect his family." The moment I shouted Wu Zhendong's name, Captain He's face visibly paled. A flicker of panic crossed his features. "She's lying. She's insane. Arrest her now," he yelled, his voice losing its professional calm. The officers hesitated, confused by my specific accusations. Just as they renewed their efforts to subdue me, a commanding voice rang out from the darkness beyond my gate. "What do you think you're doing?" Everyone turned. A tall man in a crisp military uniform stepped into the circle of light from my doorway, flanked by 2 serious-looking aides. The medals on his chest gleamed with authority. It was General Zhao. Captain He's face went from pale to ashen. He knew exactly who this was. "We're reporting, sir," he stammered, snapping a clumsy salute. "We were just arresting a suspect." General Zhao's expression was icy. "A suspect? Who?" Captain He's hand trembled as he pointed at me. Her sir. She extorted 100,000 yuan. The amount is extraordinarily large. It wasn't extortion. I cried out, my voice strong with newfound hope. That 100,000 yuan is dirty money. Bribe money taken by County Chief Wu Zhendong. And this so-called Captain He's not even the real he. He's Wu Zhendong's son Wu Xiaogang. He's using a stolen identity to abuse his power and persecute me. As I shouted their crimes, Wu Xiaogang's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. She's talking nonsense. She's lying, sir. Don't believe her. I will determine the truth for myself, General Zhao said, his voice flat and final. He turned to the junior officers. For now, release her. Immediately. The officers, terrified of the general's authority, instantly stepped back. Wu Xiaogang looked like he was about to be sick. I didn't hesitate. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the letter I had prepared days ago, a detailed point-by-point report outlining everything. Wu Zhendong's corruption, his son's impersonation, Jiang Wei and Su Jia's theft of my admission letter. I handed it to General Zhao. Sir, I said, my voice firm. I am formally reporting Wu Zhendong for corruption and accepting bribes. I report Wu Xiaogang for impersonation and abuse of power. And I am reporting the soldier Jiang Wei for unethical conduct, conspiring to steal my identity and attempting to frame me. I pointed a shaking finger at Jiang Wei, who had emerged from the shadows, his face a mask of utter terror. The proof is on him. He stole the real letter from my home tonight during the commotion. General Zhao took the letter. His eyes scanned the pages, his face growing darker with each passing second. The truth was irrefutable. I had done my homework. I had contacted the real officer he in the city days prior. Finally he looked up. His gaze swept over the trembling Wu Xiaogang and the petrified Jiang Wei. Comrade Lin, he said to me, his voice solemn. Everything you have said will be investigated thoroughly. Wu Zhendong will owe an explanation to the entire public. He turned his commanding gaze to the two men. As for them, what's false can't be made true. They will be punished accordingly. Wu Xiaogang's legs gave out and he collapsed to the ground in a heap. Jiang Wei, though still standing, was shaking uncontrollably, his future crumbling before his eyes. General Zhao looked directly at Jiang Wei. As a soldier, you are not only ungrateful, you have framed an innocent person, engaged in immoral conduct and violated your duty. You are unfit to wear the uniform. His voice was like a judge's gavel. On behalf of the military district, I am suspending you from service pending a full investigation. The moment he finished speaking, Jiang Wei's knees finally buckled, and he too collapsed onto the dirt, utterly broken. I bowed deeply to General Zhao, tears of relief finally welling in my eyes. Thank you, sir. Truly. No need to thank me, he replied. Eliminating corruption from within is my duty. He looked at me, a hint of respect in his eyes. Linny. Do you have any other grievances? I straightened up. My eyes found Auntie Zhu and Uncle Jiang, who were watching from the crowd, their faces white with fear. Yes, I said, my voice clear and strong. They kept my survivor's benefits for 18 years. I want that money returned. That's a simple matter, General Zhao said. We will verify the facts and have them return it in full. The week that followed was a whirlwind of quiet vindication. The village, which had once whispered about me, now whispered about the downfall of the Jiang family and the powerful officials from the county. The news spread like wildfire. Wu Zhendong had been arrested, his assets seized. Wu Xiaogang, the false captain was exposed and jailed for impersonation and abuse of power. The real officer he was reinstated. But the most satisfying news, the one that settled the cold knot of vengeance in my stomach, concerned Jiang Wei. His military career was not just over, it was annihilated. He was formally discharged in disgrace, his uniform stripped from him, his name blacklisted. The promotion he had valued above my life, above his own honor, was dust. Auntie Zhu, ever the survivor, came to my door one afternoon. Her face was puffy from crying, but her eyes held a new, calculating fear. Without a word, she handed me a heavy cloth bag. Inside was not the flashy stack of bills from the wedding, but a smaller, more honest sum. Every jiao of my survivor's pension meticulously counted and returned. There were no pleas, no performances. Just a silent, terrified acknowledgement of defeat. She turned and scurried away, a mouse returning to its ruined nest. With the money, my money, secure and my name finally cleared, I began to pack for school. The real admission letter was now my most prized possession, carefully wrapped in oilcloth and tucked into the bottom of my bag. I felt a lightness I hadn't known in either lifetime. I was free. On the morning of my departure, a final act of poetic justice unfolded in the village square. A fancy car I'd never seen before pulled in, stirring up a cloud of dust. Out stepped a well-dressed woman with a face like thunder, followed by a younger woman and a girl in her 20s, Wu Zhendong's wife, daughter and daughter-in-law. Their city finery looked absurd against the dusty backdrop of our village. Their comfortable life, built on corruption, had evaporated overnight. They didn't need to ask for directions. They marched straight to the temporary village office where Jiang Wei and Su Jia were holed up. I stood at my doorway watching from a distance. The well-dressed woman, Madame Wu, spotted Su Jia first. "You," she shrieked, her voicing the morning calm. "You shameful, useless girl." Su Jia, who had been listlessly sweeping the step, looked up, her face paling. "Auntie? What are you?" She didn't get to finish. Madame Wu lunged forward and slapped her so hard the sound echoed across the square. "This is all because of you. Your laziness. Your scheming. You never studied, never worked, and instead of living right you went after someone else's man. You ruined us." It was like unleashing tigers. The other two women pounced, their city-bred nails scratching and clawing. They tore at Su Jia's hair, her clothes, screaming insults. "Thanks to you, your uncle is in prison. Our home is gone. Everything is gone." Su Jia screamed, crying for help, but the villagers just watched, silent and unmoved. She had brought this on herself. She lay on the ground, bruised and sobbing, her pretty clothes torn as the Wu women, having spent their fury, stormed back to their car and drove away, leaving a trail of dust and disgrace. Not a single person moved to help Su Jia up. Not even Auntie Zhu, who emerged from the office, took one look at the battered, useless girl who had caused her son's ruin, and turned her back with a snort of disgust. Her kindness, like everything else about her, had always been conditional. I saw my ride, an old truck heading to the county bus station, approaching. I picked up my single bag, my entire future contained within it. As I walked toward the road, a figure detached itself from the shadows of the office. It was Jiang Wei. He looked a decade older. His clothes were dirty, his face unshaven, his eyes hollow pits of despair. The handsome, arrogant officer was gone, replaced by a broken shell of a man. He blocked my path. "Ife," he croaked, his voice raw. "I'm sorry." I said nothing. I just looked at him. Everything that happened," he stammered. "It was all because of Su Jia. She seduced me. She told me she had powerful connections, that she could help me get promoted. She's the one who wanted your admission letter. She asked me to get it for her. It was all her idea. I was just confused. She used me." I looked at this pitiful man, still trying to shift the blame, still refusing to look into the mirror of his own soul. "And what do you want from me now?" I asked, my voice flat. "Forgiveness," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Even death row inmates get a chance at redemption." I was misled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. "You're wrong," I cut him off, the ice in my voice making him flinch. "If you'd admitted your mistakes and taken responsibility, I might still consider you human. But all you've done is shift the blame onto her like you had no part in it. That makes you worse than a coward." "I was used by her," he insisted, a desperate whine entering his voice. "You have to believe me. She's the one who pushed me to break off the engagement early." I stared him down, a cold smile touching my lips. "You're talking about last week. In this life, you came to break off the engagement a week earlier than in the last one." I let the words hang in the air, watching his face closely. "And you're saying Su Jia forced you? So you're admitting I'm right? You remember?" His eyes widened in dawning, absolute horror. He staggered backward as if I'd struck him. You've come back too." "That's right," I said, the full weight of my truth finally unleashed. "After you and Su Jia got me killed, I came back." His face lost all remaining color. He looked like a man seeing a ghost. "You came back," he breathed. "Drop the act," I said. "I will never forgive you. Never again will I fall for your lies, Jiang Wei. You have no heart, no soul." He stumbled back, but then a desperate, confused thought seemed to seize him. He surged forward again. Then how do you know? General Zhao? How are you connected to him? I saved General Zhao's life, I said flatly. In my past life he owed me a favor. It was because of me he promoted you in the army. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place for him, and the revelation shattered what was left of his mind. His face went slack with a devastating, absolute understanding. So that's it, he mumbled, his eyes losing focus. That's why, after you died, General Zhao ordered an investigation, and I was, he couldn't say the word, executed. He looked at me, his expression one of utter devastation. I never knew you even knew him. I thought Su Jiao was the one who helped me. I was completely wrong. He stood there, murmuring to himself, a man who had lost not just his future but the very foundation of his past. He was utterly, irreversibly broken. Just then a limping, disheveled Su Jiao stumbled into the square. Her face was swollen and bruised from her beating. "Jiang Wei," she wailed, her voice cracking. "Your mother told me to pack up and leave. Is that really what you want to? After everything I've done for you, after I lost my family for you, you're really going to treat me like this?" Jiang Wei's head snapped up. The confusion and despair in his eyes crystallized into pure, unadulterated rage. All his failures, his ruin now had a target. "You still dare to speak?" he roared, his voice echoing with a hatred so deep it was terrifying. "You liar. Didn't you say I got promoted because of your uncle? You used me. You lied to me. You used my future like it was a game. I used you." Su Jia screamed back, her own fury rising to meet his. "Weren't you the one who came crawling to me the moment you heard my uncle was a powerful man? You flirted, begged for attention. You think I didn't see through that? Shut your mouth." Jiang Wei roared. "I'm done with you. I want a clean break. We're getting divorced right now." He lunged at her, grabbing her by her already torn hair and started dragging her away from the road, back toward the office. Su Jia kicked and screamed, hurling every curse and insult she could think of. The two of them, bound together by hatred and mutual destruction, fought like wild animals, their vicious shouts and sobs filling the air. I turned away from the horrifying spectacle. My ride was waiting. I climbed onto the back of the truck, setting my bag down beside me. The driver clicked his tongue and the engine rattled to life. As the truck began to pull away, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the morning air, sharp and final. It was followed by the horrified shouts of villagers running toward the commotion. I didn't look back. I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead, on the path leading out of the village. The sounds of chaos faded behind me, replaced by the rumble of the engine and the whisper of the wind. I later heard the fragmented accounts, passed along like grim folklore. In their final vicious struggle, Su Jia had grabbed a pair of sewing scissors. Blind with rage and desperation, she had plunged them into Jiang Wei's chest. He had died there, in the dirt outside the temporary home that was never really his. Su Jia was subdued by the villagers and taken away by the real police. But that was their story. My story was just beginning. The truck sped forward, carrying me away from the village, away from the misfortune, away from the ghosts of 2 lifetimes. The mountains slowly receded into the horizon, and for the first time I truly believed that in this life, I would finally have a beautiful future. A future I had fought for, a future that belonged to me and me alone. The bus to Beijing was a world unto itself, a metal capsule hurtling me toward my destiny. I sat by the window, watching the landscape transform from the familiar rugged greens of my mountain home to the vast flat expanses of farmland, and finally to the sprawling, frantic outskirts of the capital. With each passing kilometer, the weight on my shoulders lightened. I was leaving behind the dust of the village, the echoes of betrayal and the scent of ashes. The journey took 2 days. I slept fitfully, my bag clutched to my chest, my admission letter a permanent, comforting weight against my body. When the towering skyline of Beijing finally emerged, a forest of concrete and glass, my breath caught in my throat. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Su Jia's taunt echoed in my mind. "You wouldn't even be able to find your way out of the train station." But I shoved it aside. I had faced down far worse than a busy station. I navigated the chaotic Beijing railway station with a determined focus, following the signs for the university shuttle bus. The city was a symphony of noise, blaring horns, bicycle bells, the constant hum of a million voices. I kept my head high, my steps sure. I was no longer Lin Yifei, the scorned village herbalist. I was Lin Yifei, student of Beijing University of Traditional Medicine. The university campus was a sanctuary of ancient wisdom and modern ambition. Graceful willow trees shaded pathways where students hurried to and fro, their arms laden with books. The air smelled of incense, herbs, and youthful possibility. I found the administration building and, with trembling hands, presented my admission letter. The clerk, a bored-looking young man, took it, his eyes scanning the paper. Then he paused, looked up at me, and a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He compared the name on the letter to my identity documents. Lin Yifei, he said, his tone now slightly more respectful. We've been expecting you. There was a message from General Zhao's office to ensure your enrollment process was smooth. My heart swelled with gratitude. The general had kept his word, even in this small, crucial detail. My dormitory room was simple but clean, shared with 3 other girls. They were from cities, their clothes newer, their conversation faster, full of references I didn't understand. They looked at my simple village clothes with mild curiosity but no malice. Here I was, just another student. The past held no power. The first few weeks were a blur of intense learning. I devoured the textbooks, my practical knowledge from years of herb gathering giving me a unique foundation that left my professors impressed. While others struggled to identify dried roots in the lab, I could name them blindfolded by scent and touch. I was in my element. One afternoon, a message came from the administration office. I was to report to the headmaster's office. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Had something gone wrong? Had Sujia's family somehow? I knocked on the heavy wooden door. Come in. I entered. The headmaster, a kind-faced man with spectacles, sat behind a large desk. And sitting across from him was General Zhao. He was out of uniform, dressed in a simple dark tunic, but his presence still commanded the room. He stood as I entered, a small, respectful smile on his face. Miss Lin, the headmaster said warmly. General Zhao wished to see how you were settling in. I am well, sir. Thank you, I said, bowing slightly to them both. The headmaster tells me you are at the top of your class already, General Zhao said, his eyes crinkling. Though that does not surprise me. I have a lot of catching up to do, sir, I replied modestly. Nonsense. You have a lifetime of experience they lack. He gestured for me to sit. I came for 2 reasons. First, to give you this. He handed me a sealed envelope. It is the official report on the conclusion of the matters. Back home. Justice was served completely and transparently. I took the envelope, my fingers steady. I didn't need to open it. The closure was in his words. The second reason, he continued, his tone softening, is to settle my debt. Sir, you owe me nothing, I said quickly. You have already done so much. You gave me back my future. A life is worth more than a future, he said gravely. I made you a promise on that mountain and I intend to keep it. You asked for a bright future for your fiancé. That was a selfless wish, and it was twisted by a selfish man. He leaned forward. So now I ask you again, Lin Yifei. Name your reward. This time ask for something for yourself. I looked at him, at this powerful man who believed in honor and debt. I thought of my village, of the people who still relied on a weary, aging barefoot doctor. I thought of the knowledge in my hands and in my heart. I took a deep breath. I want to build a clinic, I said, my voice clear and sure. In my village in the Jade Cloud Mountains. A proper clinic with medicines and equipment. I want to be trained not just as a student, but as a doctor who can serve my people. And when I graduate, I want to go back home and run it. General Zhao was silent for a long moment. Then a slow, deep smile spread across his face. It was a smile of profound respect. A wish not for taking but for giving, he said quietly. It is granted. He turned to the headmaster. See to it that Miss Lin receives a full scholarship, covering all expenses. And arrange for her to have practical medical training at the PLA hospital during her summers. The clinic will be built by the time she graduates. I will personally oversee it. Tears of gratitude, pure and untainted by sorrow, filled my eyes. Thank you, sir. No, Lin Yifei, he said, standing to leave. Thank you. Thank you for reminding an old soldier what true honor looks like. He left, and my future, once a narrow path of revenge, exploded into a vast, sunlit horizon of purpose. The years at university passed in a joyful, exhausting blur. I studied, I trained at the military hospital, I made friends. I learned not just from books but from the bustling energy of Beijing. I even grew to love the city. I never returned to my village during those years. I needed the clean break. But news trickled in. The clinic was built, a modern, white-walled building that became a beacon of hope for the mountain communities. Auntie Zhu and Uncle Jiang, stripped of their ill-gotten comforts, lived a quiet, shamed life. The story of Jiang Wei and Su Jia became a dark cautionary tale, told to warn children against greed and betrayal. Finally, graduation day arrived. I stood with my classmates wearing my cap and gown, a diploma in my hand. I had done it. Not through someone else's sacrifice but through my own strength and will. Instead of seeking a job in the city, I packed my bags once more. I boarded a train heading south, then a bus into the familiar mountains. I was going home but not as the girl who had left. I was returning as Dr. Lin. The truck that met me at the county station was the same one that had taken me away years before. The driver was older, his hair grayer. He grinned when he saw me. "Welcome back, Dr. Lin. The whole village is waiting." As we neared the village, I saw it. Perched on a sunny slope overlooking the terraced fields was the new clinic, just as General Zhao had promised. It was beautiful. A small crowd had gathered outside. But my eyes were drawn away from the clinic, to the figure standing a little apart from the crowd, near the path that led up to my old cottage. He was tall, dressed in a simple but well-made tunic, and he held himself with an easy confidence that was neither arrogant nor meek. As the truck stopped and I climbed out, he walked toward me. It was only then I recognized him. It was the son of Old Man Chen, my neighbor. The boy who had once shyly helped me carry herbs. He was a man now, his features strong and kind. "Welcome home, Yifei," he said, his voice deeper than I remembered. He smiled and it reached his eyes. "We've been taking care of your garden for you. The violets are in bloom." I looked at him, at the familiar mountains, at the new clinic that represented my future. I had come back not for revenge but for renewal. I had fought for a beautiful future and I had found it waiting for me, right here where it all began. I smiled back, a true full smile that felt like the first day of spring. "It's good to be home." The end.